Well, America's election headquarters now focusing on national security today as we await Donald Trump's address to the Union League in Philadelphia. The Republican nominee is expected to unveil a plan for a major increase in defense spending, and there's a live look at the stage and where we expect Mr. Trump any moment now. Joining us, Simon Rosenberg, president and founder of NDN and a former campaign advisor for President Bill Clinton, and Chris Wilson, former campaign pollster for Senator Ted Cruz. It's nice to have you both as we continue to watch the Union League, and we await, as I mentioned, Donald Trump. It's an interesting site for this speech because the Union League was created during the Civil War to support the Union. And there were some themes, of course, during that time: the role of government, the role of the military, a divided electorate that, look, we're still exploring today. So it's a little bit ironic to think about as we await this address. Simon, what do you think is the most important thing for Donald Trump to accomplish this hour?
You know, I think the thing that's been most surprising to me about Trump's foreign policy and defense stances have been how far they've drifted from Ronald Reagan. Reagan was pro-free trade. Trump isn't. Reagan was strong with our European allies, with NATO, against Russian aggression. Trump has been coddling the Russians again and again. And finally, on immigration, Ronald Reagan was pro-immigration, welcomed immigrants. Donald Trump doesn't. And I think for Republicans who are trying to make sense of their nominee, it's just remarkable to me how far he has drifted from what made, I think, the Republican Party so successful just 30 years ago.
Interesting. Chris, what do you think about that? As Ronald Reagan as the benchmark and looking at his policies to measure how successful Donald Trump may be?
Well, I think it's a good point and a good analogy, and to continue on that analogy, I think what Trump needs to do today is describe what America would look like after a Trump administration, and that's really the key, is if he can lay out and sort of contrast what he believes in compared to what we've experienced for the last 8 years in the Obama lead from behind strategy. I think that's a win for him. But really, the fact is Trump's challenge here is less policy specific and more personal specific, and that's what he's got to get beyond, is show that he is not volatile and that he could be a commander-in-chief, because right now people have trouble picturing him in that role.
It's so interesting that you bring that up, because Daniel Henninger from the Wall Street Journal was on our program earlier, Simon, and he said this is not today about the military, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. It's not so much about the policy. It's about the belief of the individual and how they explain that belief to the electorate. Talk to us about Hillary Clinton. She has experience,
sure,
but some are pointing to that as also her weakness. What is her belief when it comes to national security? We're going to hear it from Donald Trump.
Well, and I think you'll hear a lot of it tonight on the forum that they're both doing. And I think that, you know, Clinton is seen in our party as a sort of muscular liberal. I mean, she's been very much, she supported the Iraq War along with, with George Bush in 2002, which Trump opposed, obviously, or says he opposed now. She, I think, views herself being a president of a very engaged America around the world, using smart power, as we describe it as Democrats, not just, military, always leading with the military, but using all the tools in the toolbox. I think you're going to hear much more of that from her in the coming weeks as we enter the debates and we have these kinds of forums that we're having tonight.
But the results, Chris, that's something else that Hillary Clinton is going to have to confront as well as you look around the world and see the state of affairs.
It is, that's right. And again, I would argue if this is about Hillary Clinton continuing the Obama administration, the Obama foreign policy, that's a loss for her. And that's what Donald Trump needs to do, is be able to make it appear as if Hillary Clinton would just be an extension of the Obama foreign policy, which with most people seems a failure. But again, Trump's challenge here is he has about a 20-point lead right now with active duty military and veterans, according to a recent NBC poll. At the same time, 4 years ago, Romney led by 25 points. So even though he's got that lead right now with military veterans, it's not as strong as it should be. And that's what he has the opportunity to do tonight, is show that he can be that commander-in-chief, that he does have the temperament, and that he can contrast himself with Hillary Clinton to be a stronger commander-in-chief than she would be.
Chris, let me stay with you for a moment. What about what critics of Donald Trump say about him, which is that he doesn't have any experience leading a military or in foreign policy affairs, the same way that Hillary Clinton does, like her or don't like her? How does he take that on?
Well, it's a challenge, and to your point, it's not just his critics. It's 70% of the American people in a recent Quinnipiac poll said that he does not have the experience to be commander-in-chief. Two-thirds said he doesn't have the temperament. And that's why speeches like this are so important. But it's not just the speeches, it's not just the policy, it's the way he conducts himself as a candidate. He's got to stop sending out childish tweets, attacking people, attacking his own party members like he did Jeff Flake over the weekend. And he's got to really run the rest of this campaign cycle in a manner that makes him appear presidential, like he can stand up and be a commander-in-chief. Because right now, if this election is about Hillary Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump will win. If it's about Donald Trump, he'll lose. And that's really what he has to get into his mind and understand as he continues over the next couple of months.
You know, Donald Trump may not have the experience managing a military, Simon, but he does have experience managing companies. And he's making the argument, we expect to hear from him, that when it comes to spending money, we should spend it on the military. When Hillary Clinton's talking about where we should spend our money, she's talking about infrastructure. Why not, if you're Hillary Clinton, say, let's spend a little bit more money on defense, just given the state of the world right now? Why wouldn't that be a winning issue for her?
Well, I think let's hear what she has to say over the next few days. I don't think Hillary Clinton has ever been described as a dove by anybody who's watched her on the global stage. And I think that what she's going to be arguing is that her experience, her understanding of the world, it is a complex time, as you said, Jenna, that she's just better suited to be the commander-in-chief at this time in American history. The American public clearly believes that, right? I mean, just based on the polling, I believe that as well. And I think it is. We're lucky in some ways that in a time of great change around the world that we'd have somebody who's been on the global stage for 25 years who can do the job on day one.
But
and I think that's part of the case that she'll be making.
Simon, as a father, too,
yeah.
do you really believe that? Because that's something that voters are going to consider. You know, who's going to get me a job and who's going to keep me safe? And you truly believe, given the state of affairs all over the world, that we would be safer under Hillary Clinton?
I have no doubt that the country will be more prosperous under Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump, and we will be safer. I have no doubt about that whatsoever.
Chris, how does Donald Trump make the argument, no, I'm the one that's going to make you safe because I'm the one that's going to make America great?
Well, I'll tell you, that would be an area where I strongly disagree with Simon. And it's not necessarily about Trump, but it's more about Clinton. I don't think that she has made that argument. And really, again, if this election gets down to who's going to make it safer, you can go back to the election night speeches. And there's no question in terms of a contrast that Donald Trump made his his convention night speech, his nomination speech, all about making America safe. And that is the dominant issue in this campaign. It's going to be very, very tough for Hillary Clinton to win on that. She just doesn't have the credibility. She doesn't have the credibility for her time as Secretary of State. She doesn't have the credibility because she's coming off of an Obama administration that Americans do not believe has made the world safe. They see, I mean, right now, your last report was on a plot to blow up the Notre Dame Cathedral in France. This is not a safer world than it was when George W. Bush left office, and Hillary Clinton has got to be able to separate herself from that, and I don't think she can do it.
Simon, why do you think she can?
I think because of all the things we've been talking about. I mean, she's going to be making her case through the debates and in these public appearances over the next few months that she has the experience to be able to lead the country. Look, she's now gotten all these Republican foreign policy officials who've even joined her campaign. There are Republican foreign policy leaders who are agreeing with her in that case. I also want to echo what was said by Chris, is that, look, the contrast with Trump. I mean, Trump been a wild, inconsistent character. He's deeply inexperienced in a time of enormous challenge. He's in some ways the worst possible person we could put into the Oval Office, given how inexperienced he is. And I listened to him talk yesterday. I was on air here at Fox, and I listened to his speech. It was incredibly rambling and incoherent, and he's getting better, but he's still a long way from being reassuring, I think, in his
Simon,
public
let me ask you about that. The weaknesses being, and we've discussed them on this program for both candidates, but I listened to a former Rear Admiral today talk about why he supports Donald Trump. And one of the reasons he pointed to is that he did not like the way that Hillary Clinton handled classified information. And he said on a very basic level, that showed to him that she was not capable or faithful, and that's the word that he used, to the United States government. Donald Trump doesn't have that in his past.
Right.
She has something very specific. What about that?
Yeah. Fair game. I mean, just fair game. I mean, this is a legitimate part of the conversation going forward. It's something that clearly took place while she was Secretary of State. She clearly made a mistake. She has said that repeatedly. She has to be able to defend this in the context of her broader vision, her own experience. And I would argue, right, that, as I said earlier, that her commitment to robust American engagement around the world is more consistent with traditional American foreign policy than what Trump has been representing, which is a radical break from where even the Republican Party has been over the last generation, and certainly far and far away from where Ronald Reagan took the country in the 1980s.
Chris, a quick final thought from you as we watch Mike Flynn. He's going to be, I believe, going to be introducing Donald Trump. So far, the criticism of Hillary Clinton over the classified email hasn't really stuck. So what does Donald Trump do over the next 60 days or so to make that stick and make himself a viable alternative?
Well, I think the more it comes out, the more it sticks. And the challenge is the contrast with Trump and the challenge and what he has right now in terms of his personal challenges in terms of credibility as a candidate. But I would say Trump did a good job yesterday in releasing the list of military leaders. Simon brought up the fact that there's been a lot of Republican foreign policy leaders that have endorsed Clinton. And that's a real problem for the Trump campaign. What they did yesterday was a good step in the right direction in trying to right that ship, bringing together a list of military leaders. And now if he can do a good job of sending those leaders out as surrogates and pulling off some of the surrogates he's gotten that frankly are embarrassing him when they go on TV, and putting on military leaders like Flynn, who's introducing him right now, and others from that list that have come out, and that's could take him a pretty far direction in the right direction in terms of establishing him as a more credible source in terms of standing up and being a future commander-in-chief. And that's what today and tonight is all about. And if he does that effectively and is able to make this a battle of who's going to keep America safe, who is going to be a more honest, a more trustworthy commander-in-chief, and frankly, who's going to do a better job overall in just managing the military, if he's able to win that argument, that's going to make this a much closer election than I think people expect it to be right now, because Clinton is without question vulnerable on those issues for a lot of the reasons Simon pointed out, things that she has done in the past, seen as a muscular Democrat, muscular liberal.
Liberal was the term, yes.
That's right, and I don't disagree with that, but I think that also creates challenges for her because she has been muscular yet ineffective. It'd be different if there was effectiveness, but the world being where it is today is
interesting description. It makes me want to flex, as I'm hearing about it. Interesting you mentioned
we all worked out this morning.
That's right. Yeah. Mentioning the surrogates, General Mike Flynn says he was fired by the Obama administration essentially for wanting to be tougher on our nation's enemies, and he's one of the surrogates for Donald Trump. You've seen him frequently over the last several days. So we're awaiting Donald Trump. Simon, Chris, if you would, just stand by. When he steps to the microphone, we hope to have you back to weigh in as well. John?
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.